This is the sleeping pad that I'm gonna be using on this trip, and this is the most minimal backpacking setup that I've ever used. I'm really curious to test out an extremely minimal setup like this in order to see what the pros and cons are, but I'm also a little bit nervous because I'm stepping well outside my comfort zone using things like that 1/8 inch foam mat in order to sleep on, and then a tarp as my only source of protection from the elements. I've based the gear for this trip on what a famous thru hiker Jupiter has used for thousands of miles, with the goal of being as ultralight and minimal as possible. My pack only weighs 9 pounds, including all of my gear and food and water. I've been backpacking and camping for decades, but we'll have to see whether I have the skill in order to use and adapt to an extremely minimal setup like this, and how much comfort I end up sacrificing in the process. There's 3 main challenges I anticipate with this trip. The first one is how to be comfortable with such a minimal setup, especially with the sleep system. The sleep system that I'm using is kind of crazy and definitely has me nervous. The second thing is protection from the elements. It's not supposed to be rainy or windy on this trip, but I want to assess how well the setup that I have can protect me from the elements. The third challenge is how easy this system is to use and how much skill is required. Like I said, I have decades of experience, and I still anticipate there being quite a few little challenges that I encounter when using this setup. I've watched a lot of Jupiter Hikes videos on YouTube, and the benefits that he talks about when using a minimal setup like this are, first of all, weight and speed. It's such a lightweight setup that you can move quickly. The beginning of this trail has been mostly uphill, and I've been able to cruise through that uphill easily with such a lightweight pack. The second benefit he talks about is simplicity. Especially once you get used to it, there's just a lot less gear to keep track of and fewer things that you need to finagle with in order to make the setup work properly. The third benefit he talks about is connection to the trail and your surroundings once you get to camp. A lot of the on-trail connection comes to not using a heavy pack and not having to focus on kind of pain and difficulty while you're hiking, as well as using barefoot shoes. Jupiter is known for that, and I'm using the same Zero shoes that he's used for thousands of miles that are a barefoot shoe that really allows you to connect to the ground and feel every rock and stick. This style of shoe isn't for everyone, but I do enjoy using them because they help me strengthen my foot for those really tough backpacking days, and I do feel a little bit more connected to the ground and a little bit more nimble as I'm hiking. Before we get to camp, I want to share with you guys more of the on-trail items that are part of this system, because there's some interesting ones, like these dance pants that dancers use, like ballet dancers, in order to keep their legs warm in between, I guess, exercising. These are really interesting. They weigh under 100 grams. You can pick them up on Amazon for like $20. But the functionality that they provide is basically warmth and then protection from bugs. They're thick enough that bugs aren't going to bite through them. And if you're up on a ridge or just around camp and you're wearing shorts, then they're going to keep your legs a little bit warmer than just having nothing at all. For sunglasses, I'm using the classic Jupiter Hikes Ombre sunglasses. So what makes these special is that they don't have any arms to them. There's just a strap that goes around the back of your head, and then you can tighten it and loosen it. I really like these because when I don't need them, if I'm in tree cover or something, I can take them off, hang them around my neck, and I'm not going to lose them. And then I can slide them into my pocket really easily. Not having arms, I think, makes them more durable as well. I've been really impressed with these. They've been my go-to sunglasses all summer, and I haven't lost them yet, which is pretty rare for me. I usually lose a couple pairs of sunglasses every summer. They're pretty expensive, but if I'm not having to replace 3 or 4 pairs of sunglasses every year, then I think it ends up being worth it for me. Jupiter used to use aqua mirror drops, which are kind of just drops that you put in the water and it treats it, but he's recently switched to a platypus quick draw system, and this is a system that I've been using for a long time now. It's my go-to, and I'm a big fan, so glad to see that Jupiter's using it now as well. And then what else we got in here? I got a Garmin InReach. I haven't really seen Jupiter talk about an InReach, and it's probably not something that's going to be part of most people's minimal setups, but I really needed to bring this on this trip, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But this basically allows me to communicate back at home and press the SOS button if I get into an emergency. A big focus of this setup is reduced weight, but also it being minimal, and part of that is just minimal from like a cost standpoint. And Jupiter has used jackets like the Light & Equipment Visp, which is an expensive rain jacket, but recently he's just gone back to the old Frog Togs, and this has always just been a go-to for me as well. If I just need a rain jacket to throw in my pack that I know is going to work, it's going to be lightweight, and I don't really care if it rips or anything because it's so inexpensive, then I'll grab a Frog Togs. This is oldie but a goodie. The pack that's holding all this gear is made by Palante Packs, and I know Jupiter's a big fan of these. He's used basically their entire lineup from the super minimal Joey pack to the desert pack to what this one is, which is the V2. It's a pack that prioritizes being ultralight. It's very lightweight, but then also accessibility to items. So you have a big front pocket here that's stretchy. There's also a little pocket on the side of the front pocket where you can keep tent stakes, or I'm storing my trowel and my poop kit in there. There's also 2 side pockets that are generously sized for water bottles. I find that because this pack, the torso is so short, that I do have troubles reaching back and grabbing my water from them. I have to loosen up the shoulder straps in order to do that. If I'd gotten the bigger version, this is the 16-inch version of this pack, I might have been able to reach the water bottle pockets a little bit more easily, but I went with the smaller, more minimal pack. There's also 2 pockets on the shoulder straps here. They're not very big, but a great size for something like a small bear spray or putting your sunglasses in or some snacks. But where I like to keep my snacks are on the bottom pocket. So Palante was one of the first companies to really make bottom pockets popular. And you basically just have an opening on one side of this pocket that's on the bottom of the pack. And then Palante also has a little pocket on the corner here that you can stick garbage into. Personally, I think bottom pockets are perfect for snacks. You can stuff a full day's worth of food in there, and then having a little garbage pocket is really nice. So you're not having to deal with garbage in either the pockets of your pants or shorts or in the shoulder straps. Everything else that's inside the pack is for around camp, my shelter, my sleep system, my cook system, as well as some clothing. But we'll get into that once we get to camp and I figure out a spot to set up. For this trip, I'm at a spot called Pickle Jar Lakes, and I'm at the first lake of a series of lakes that go up this valley. I'm probably gonna check out all of the lakes because campsite selection with this system is really important. I wanna be making sure that I'm ending up at the right spot. The 3 things that I'm looking for out of a campsite are, first of all, protection from the wind. It's really windy out right now and my system does not deal with wind very well. The second thing is tree cover in order to protect me from the rain if it does end up raining, as well as to reduce the amount of condensation that's entering into my system. The third thing is the ground and setting up on a really nice kind of cushy, cozy ground, not something that's super rocky. I think I found the perfect spot to set up camp for tonight, but before I explain to you guys why I chose this specific area, I want to tell you a little bit about the sponsor of today's video, Garage Growing Gear. Part of what I want to tell you has to do with the reason why I absolutely had to bring the InReach on this trip. And if you follow the channel, you'll know that Steph and I are expecting a baby girl at the end of August 2024. But what I haven't shared anywhere, because we just found out a couple days ago, is that we're going to be having her 3 weeks early. And that's because a couple days ago we found out that Steph has elevated blood pressure and she's fine, the baby's fine, but they recommended inducing early. So instead of having our little baby at the end of August, we're gonna be having her 3 days from right in this moment right now. So this is gonna be my last trip before I'm a dad, and it's terrifying, but it's also extremely exciting. The reason I wanted to share with you guys that story while telling you about Garage Growing Gear is that I'm just very thankful for Garage Growing Gear, for supporting this channel, supporting my family. If it wasn't for sponsors like Garage Growing Gear, who's been around for years, they're the first sponsor I ever had, I wouldn't be able to go on trips like this and have a family. I'd have to choose one or the other, and I'm just very thankful that I get to do both. So if you want to support the channel, definitely go check out Garage Growing Gear at the link in the video description. I also know that Lloyd, the co-founder of Garage Growing Gear, is having a baby this summer as well, like pretty much right now. So congratulations to him. I consider Lloyd a friend. I consider Garage Growing Gear a friend. So yeah, thanks Garage Growing Gear for sponsoring this video and continue to support the channel. The reason I chose this campsite in particular, because I searched all 4 lakes and there's way better views from the end of this lake or a whole bunch of other spots, nicer fire pits and that kind of thing, even though I won't have a fire tonight, is because of this spot right here. There's a handful of benefits of this very specific location. First of all, it has good tree cover. I have trees all around me, above me. It's gonna protect me from condensation as well as rain if it does rain. Second of all, the ground is really nice. It's soft. People haven't been setting up here a lot, so there's not a lot of compaction and there's a lot of needles on the ground, making it nice and soft. And there's also a little bit of a slope going this way. So I'm gonna set my head up on this side and then my feet on this side. And that's gonna be important because I don't have a pillow as part of my sleep system. It's the first time in a very long time where I haven't brought a pillow on a backpacking trip. So I'm trying to think of ways and strategies in order to still be comfortable without a pillow. But before I get my shelter and sleep system set up, and I'll share with you guys everything that I brought for those, I need to get my dinner cooking because I've never cooked this kind of system before, and it could take anywhere from 15 minutes, I've heard up to like 45 minutes or an hour. And that's because I'm cold soaking. Jupiter has been cold soaking for a very long time. He's a pro at it. I cold soaked once, got insane gas and diarrhea, and never tried it again. The big tip that Jupiter gives is to use food that's gonna rehydrate easily without heat. So he recommends couscous. So in here I have couscous as well as some pistachios. It's flavored couscous with some vegetables, so hopefully it all rehydrates nicely. And I'm using a Rusby bag for my rehydrating kind of vessel. Jupiter uses a peanut butter jar most of the time. I find this a little bit lighter, it's more compact, and it's still waterproof. I could fill this with water, stick in my pack, and hike with it if I wanted to rehydrate for the last kind of hour of the day as I'm hiking. I'll probably fill it up to just above the couscous. That will probably be enough. I'll come check on it in 10 or 15 minutes, see if it needs addition. And then the spoon that I'm using, Jupiter uses an Ozark Trail plastic spoon, which is really affordable, super lightweight, which if it was still available would be awesome. I just can't find it anywhere. So I'm using this 11 gram Sea to Summit aluminum spoon. This is the lightest spoon that I've ever found that's still like really durable and long handled. So I'll give this a stir and then let the couscous rehydrate. Give it 15 minutes, and in the meantime, I'll set up my shelter and sleep system. Here we have it. I have my shelter and most of my sleep system set up. The shelter is just a 7 by 9 foot tarp. It's made out of Enigma, so it's super lightweight, under 200 grams. It's actually crazy how lightweight it is. And I have it set up in this modified half teepee style. If I wanted to, I could drop down that corner right there and then it'd be a little bit more contained and a little bit more storm worthy, but I want to allow some breeze to come in, blow the bugs away. We'll get into the bugs in a second here because I'm a little bit worried about that, but it still provides me a good amount of shelter and coverage. Having this side propped up also makes it a lot easier to get in and out. I can just duck right in and then get in onto my sleep system. The sleep system is pretty hilarious. This entire thing that's going on right here is pretty hilarious. On the bottom, I have a Polycro ground sheet. It's very lightweight. If there's like any sharp sticks or anything like that, it'd probably poke right through, but it provides a little bit of a vapor barrier and a little bit of protection from the ground. On top of that, I have my 1/8 inch thick foam mat. I laid on a little bit, did not provide that much comfort, provides a little bit of warmth, but hopefully with the needly ground, soft ground, this little bit of foam, I sleep kind of comfortably. I'll have to let you guys know tomorrow morning how well I actually sleep. And then Jupiter just uses a torso length. So he has something that goes from his shoulders down to his hips. And then he puts his backpack underneath his feet and lower legs. So that's what I'm gonna try. Like I said, no pillow. So at the head end here, I'm gonna try using my rain jacket and the dance pants kind of bunched up as a makeshift pillow. And if I have any extra clothing here, then I'll use that as well. I did bring some warm clothes. So I have basically all Alpha Direct fleece here. So this is an Alpha Direct fleece sweater, Alpha Direct fleece pants, toque, and then socks. Alpha Direct is an awesome material because it's very, very warm for how lightweight it is. This system provides a ton of extra warmth for me without increasing the weight in my pack that much or that much volume either. By far the best place to get Alpha Direct fleece is from Garage Grown Gear. They carry multiple brands and it's in stock, as opposed to if you go directly to the brand, sometimes they are out of stock or they have lead times, whereas with Garage Grown Gear, you know that you're buying in stock items. Basically, my entire clothing insulation has now switched over to Alpha Direct. It's not the most flattering when you're around camp because it's a little bit see-through, so you got to wear some underwear underneath it or you're going to be giving off a show, but I've been loving it, using it for a long time, and a big fan. I have top insulation as well. It's inside of my Nyloflume pack liner, and it's just an Enlighten Equipment down quilt, so very lightweight. Hopefully it's warm enough. It's a 40-degree quilt, but I went with that just so that I could drop a little bit of weight from my pack. I'm really starting to regret bringing this sleep system because I highly doubt I'm gonna get a good night's sleep. I'm used to much comfier systems, and I'm realizing that this is probably one of the last nights where I could have the opportunity to get a really good night's sleep, either on a good sleep system backpacking or at home, and I chose not to. So yeah, very shortly here, I'm probably not gonna be getting a lot of sleep for a good amount of time. But I'll make sure to try and get the best sleep possible. I might fiddle around with putting needles underneath here or digging a hole for my hip or shoulder. I'll let you guys know in the morning kind of what I figure out and how I sleep. But the quinoa has been in for about 30 minutes now, so let's go check on the rehydration and see how my cold soaking adventure is gonna go. It's looking pretty good. If I remember correctly, couscous really doesn't take a long time to reconstitute when you're rehydrating it, but let's see how this tastes. It's pretty good, still a little dry. The flavored quinoa definitely was a good call with the vegetables, adding the pistachios. I think in the future I'd want to add more in here. Jupiter recommends things like raisins. You could cut up some like deli meats, I guess, or maybe even like some jerky, throw that in here. I think just adding a little bit of that and then maybe some sauce, like a little bit of hot sauce or something, just to add a little bit of extra flavor and just some texture as well. But overall, really impressed. Easy to make, tasty. I might be cold soaking more. You definitely save quite a bit of weight without the fuel, the stove, the pot. So we'll see. I'll see how bad my gas is tomorrow. That's another thing. I'll let you know how I sleep and then how gassy I am. The toothbrushing system's pretty straightforward. Just consists of toothpaste tabs and then a cut down bamboo toothbrush. It's as minimal as it gets, super lightweight, but it works, it's effective. I've been using toothpaste tabs for a very long time. They're definitely my favorite way to bring toothpaste in the backcountry. But this little bamboo toothbrush that Jupiter Hikes uses that's cut down, just not worth cutting it down for me. I just use the full length, or personally I like my folding toothbrush because it provides a little bit of protection to the top of the brush. I'm gonna change into my Alpha Direct fleece and then go to bed. I did mention mosquitoes. That's something that I realized as I was hiking up here might become an issue because there's no netting here. There's nothing to protect the mosquitoes from getting at me. And I didn't bring a bug net. I think they probably won't get underneath the quilt because the quilt will keep me nice and cocooned, but my head's gonna be exposed. So because of that, I had to put bug goop all over my head and face, which I don't like. I don't like having to put on DEET, but in this case, I'd rather do that than get eaten alive over the course of the night. Luckily, there is a bit of a breeze that's coming through here and it's keeping the mosquitoes down a bit. Hopefully that continues. And hopefully the temperature drops low enough that the mosquitoes just die off or go to sleep. My pillow situation is also making me a little sad, but it is what it is. And I'll let you guys know tomorrow morning how it all went and give you my thoughts on the pros and cons of a system like this, because there's already some things that I'm realizing that I really like, and I'm going to be incorporating into my kind of everyday backpacking, and then some stuff that I'm a little bit more apprehensive about. Good morning. As expected, I did not sleep great, but better than I expected. Let me explain to you guys how the night unfolded. The mosquitoes didn't really bother me. I just covered my head in DEET, and even though there's a lot of mosquitoes around, I can still hear the buzzing up in the trees. Once I was underneath my quilt, they just stayed away. In hindsight, I really wish I'd brought a bug net. I could have put that up over my head, and I would have enjoyed wearing that a lot more than covering myself in DEET. From a warmth perspective, temperatures only got down to 5 degrees Celsius last night, which is normal for this time of year in the Canadian Rockies, and I was warm with the quilt system that I had and then the ground insulation that I had. The ground that I'm on is really dry, it's warm, so I didn't really expect there to be any issues in that department. For the sleeping pad, it's thin. Look how thin this is. It wasn't really providing much padding, but it did kind of protect me a little bit from feeling any stick and pine cone that was underneath me. So I guess it did what it was supposed to do, but overall I was not experiencing any pressure relief. I was shifting positions about every 15 minutes over the course of the night, from my side to my back to my other side to my front, and I didn't get a great night's sleep because of that. I might have gotten a solid hour of sleep at some point over the course of the night, but like I said, most of the time it was in 15-minute spurts. I might have been able to pick a better spot, something that was maybe mossy instead of kind of needly. That may have provided a little bit more pressure relief. I also could have dug a pit for my butt and my hip. I think that would have helped. But overall, I think this is an example of a spot in this system where my skills were kind of falling flat and I need a little bit more experience if I'm going to make something like this work. There's also the potential that maybe you just get used to a system like this. I'm not sure. If you have used a 1/8 inch thick sleeping mat consistently for a while now, let me know if you do get more used to it as you use this system. This is my pillow. It worked a lot better than I expected. I put my shoes on the ground and then I took the wind pants, stuffed them up inside of my rain jacket, and then put that on top of the shoes. It provided enough height for me. So when I was sleeping on my side, it was providing a little bit of pressure relief for my shoulder. The only issue is it's not really soft or comfortable at all, pretty lumpy, but got the job done. My body's feeling pretty stiff, definitely sore shoulders, sore hips, but I'll have to get up, start moving around and really see how much damage got done last night. For breakfast this morning, I'm having oatmeal just in another Rusby bag, oatmeal with some fruit and chocolate. So I just add water, and because it's quick oats, it takes like 2 minutes and then it's all rehydrated. Something that I've been thinking about is what to do with the bags that I use for dinner. If I was on a long through hike, what I'd probably do if I was through hiking is I'd bring one bag that I'd use for rehydrating. After each meal, I'd rinse it out, drink the gray water, and then I'd have kind of a a main store area, like a big bag that I'd keep the quinoa for the entire kind of section of that trip, and then just add it to this bag in order to rehydrate. But these bags are so light that if I was just on a 3-4 day trip that I knew I was going home to after, I'd probably just bring one bag per day with my meal already inside of it, because they're so light that I don't really care to carry 3 or 4 of these in my bag, and then I can just throw them in the dishwasher when I get home and wash them, and it's no muss, no fuss. I'm pretty lucky in that my morning schedule is very regular, and in order to address that, I'm gonna be using a system that I'm familiar with. It's a bidet, some soap, and then a trowel. But the trowel and the bidet are quite a bit different than the ones that I'm used to. These are the ones that Jupiter uses, and it's the Deuce of Spades trowel, and then a 3-gram bidet from Common Gear. I'm not sure how these are gonna work out for me, so I'm gonna go get my business done, and then I'll report back. Well, I got the job done, and everything came out really nicely. The system of this trowel and this bidet are only okay. Actually, the trowel sucks. I really do not like the Deuce of Spades. I used it back in the day and I forgot how much I dislike it. It just doesn't cut into difficult ground easily. It doesn't have any serrated edges on it, so you can't cut through roots. I'm used to my Bogler trowel, which weighs, I think, the same or even a little bit less than the Deuce of Spades, and is just much more effective at cutting into hard ground. The bidet worked well. It's a solid little bidet. Crazy that it's only 3 grams. It just doesn't work quite as well as the Clean for my system because it screws onto the water bottle instead of pushing into the top of the water bottle like with the Clean. And the reason why that is an issue for me is that after going number 2, I like to take off the bidet and then I drink some water from the top and then dribble the water over my hands with soap in them in order to wash my hands and get them nice and clean. With a screw top bidet, that's just a little bit more difficult. The tarp system surprised me. I thought I was gonna have a lot of troubles with it. I was actually kind of intimidated by tarps because I thought they're gonna be difficult to set up and then kind of claustrophobic and not very roomy once you got inside of them. But this system, after watching a video from Jupiter Hikes, was very easy to set up. I like that you don't need any trees in order to set up. You just use your trekking pole as this kind of front peak point, and then it was super roomy underneath. And I know that with the amount of coverage that I have, that I'd be covered if it was raining and be protected from the elements. With no netting, a tarp isn't the great if it's buggy out, but if I'm in the desert or areas where I know there's not gonna be bugs, then I'm definitely gonna be looking at the tarp system quite a bit more often, especially if I'm going on ultralight trips. I'm gonna finish getting packed up and then hit the trail, and I'll let you guys know what I think the pros and cons of an extremely minimal system like this are. The major con with this setup was definitely the comfort of the sleep system. Maybe you get used to it, or maybe with better site selection, I'd be able to be a bit more comfortable, but I think for the foreseeable future, I'm gonna be bringing my inflatable mattresses and my pillows on these trips. The only other kind of con was the lack of netting and the amount of bugs that I had on this trip. If you're in a non-buggy area, that'd be a non-factor, but something to keep in mind if you are trying to get into tarp camping and you backpack in areas that might have bugs. I also really missed having a pillow on this trip. There's some positives that surprised me and some positives that I kind of expected. For instance, I really do like a minimal setup, so that wasn't a surprise that I enjoyed that aspect of this pack. What did surprise me was the cold soaking and then the tarp camping. I went into this thinking that I would dislike both of those just based on previous experience with cold soaking and then my misconceptions about the protection and the ease of use with a tarp system. If cold soaking is done well, it's really easy, it's tasty, and I didn't have any negative effects from a gas or gastrointestinal perspective, so that was really nice to experience. And then the tarp just blew me away with how much I liked it. It's definitely something that I'm gonna be using on more and more trips. I really like the versatility of a tarp. You can set it up so it's gonna provide more protection and really lock it down, or you can set it up so it's a bit more airy and breezy and you get good views around you. I also really like that it's not a big weight investment, so you can just leave it in your pack and not use it if you want cowboy camp, just experience sleeping right underneath the stars, and it kind of opens up to you. I feel like sometimes if you bring a tent, you feel obligated to use the tent, and then you're not experiencing those other types of backpacking where you aren't using a shelter. The poly ground sheet worked well. It didn't get any punctures, no rips, and I didn't baby it at all, so I think in the long run, that's something that I might be using as well. I think the amount of camping and backpacking experience I have was a pretty big reason why this trip was successful for me. I think someone less experienced probably would have been pretty miserable. They would have gotten a poor night's sleep. They might have encountered issues with cold soaking like the first time I tried it, and the site selection and tarp setup might have been pretty intimidating for them. A less experienced backpacker would probably also have issues adhering to the extreme minimalism of this setup. It's really easy to end up bringing extra food, extra clothes, extra knickknacks, and then all of a sudden, you have a super heavy pack and you're putting all that into a pack that's not built to accommodate that. Even though I have a lot of experience, I'm still trying to learn new things, experience new things on my trips. And I really enjoyed this trip because I learned so much and I got to experience some stuff that I never have before. And that's pretty special. There's some gear that's new to me that I got to test out that I'm gonna be incorporating into more of my backpacking trips, as well as some skills that I'm gonna try and incorporate as well. Specifically, the cold soaking and tarp camping are the two things I probably enjoyed the most and learned the most about from this trip. I'm gonna book it down the trail, get home, probably install a car seat. You guys wish me luck over the next couple of weeks here. And if you wanna see a video where I torture myself in a different way, check out this video where I go on a trip for over 3 days with a 60-pound pack over mountain passes and through valleys. It was a lot of work. It really kind of beat me up, but I learned a lot on that trip as well.